just doing my thing.
Hello, you are tuned in to the voice of C38. I'm your host, Brendan Wyatt. I don't really have a whole lot of crew to announce this morning or this afternoon on Gashi Day. 11 days till the season opener. Just little shout out to Brian, who's on a work business trip. He started Gashi Day. If you follow him on Twitter, he's been doing this days to count down with jersey numbers. He started with
He has an
Pickens.
obscene amount of jerseys.
Yeah. A little bummed that he used a different kind of 12 when he could have used my 12. I've probably got about 5 different 12s. But anyway, so yeah, Austin is joining me, and Matt had something come up. So it's Austin and I, the Drunken Monk, as we will we'll look back at the last few games that the Rapids have played at the Desert Diamond Cup. They're going to play New York tomorrow, or basically yesterday, I guess, depending on when most of you listen to this. So there really isn't a whole lot we can discuss on that. The kit was put out, so we'll have our thoughts on that. Just want to say it was kind of nice to get a little bit of a leak before having to go and see it in person and you know, hear about how all the other clubs did it differently. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. There were a few players that produced well at the Desert Diamond Cup, so we'll talk about that and why we think they might have. And also, if you're a season ticket holder, the pickup dates and locations, we'll run by some of those for you guys in case you didn't read that email, which I didn't until just now. Yeah, so getting right into it, our starting 11, let's not lose format. Right, Matt?
What's a format?
Format is how we're supposed to be kind of doing this show. Last game to talk about, well, I mean, the tie with Kansas City wasn't that impressed. At first, I wasn't that impressed with the game against New England either. But it showed that we could actually come through and score some goals when we needed to, because we've talked all last year about how they play down to other teams' levels, and it seemed like first touches and second balls were becoming third and fourth balls, and it was a little messy, and it was on both sides of the field, but we were able to press and be more attacking than normal, and it showed in the scoreline.
We seemed to, at least in the preseason, start off a little bit soft, and starts like he seems to start the less starting of the lineups in the first half. So it might be that, like, you're looking at a bunch of players that are kind of still trying to learn each other, right. So you're not seeing that the starting 11, and so it's a little bit hard to start off strong when you don't have like a real leadership on the field. Like, I don't see a lot of our stronger leadership in certain positions there, and you know, like it's also preseason. Like, that's just kind of the way it starts out. Nobody's going hard. Nobody's really trying to really win. Like, you don't want to lose, but trying to get your feet wet a little bit. So I kind of expect it, but we seem to be doing better towards the end of the first half. The players seem to be getting a little bit more momentum there in both games. Second half, we seem to be just playing better ball.
Right. So, it does seem like they kind of, you know, and so obviously some of that second half was obviously a squad change too. And Pablo did a good job with mixing it up a little bit. He had a handful of different kind of, you know, he had 6 or 7 of what you would say is your main starters with, you know, 4 or 5 bench guys or fringe guys that are, you know, they're wanting to take a look at. But the one thing that kind of really impressed me, and I missed how this happened. So, you know, whether, you know, it was just straight statistics or there was an injury involved in the game with the Revs, Pop made a substitution before halftime, and that was to bring on Tony Cassio. And talk about an impact, immediately just changed the game and got 2 assists within a handful of minutes. I mean, talk about a guy who's happy to be playing for a contract, pitch it and change the perspective however you want to put it. It's a nice little story no matter what. You know, an ex-player gets a second chance, and who knows, it could have just been one game, and you know, I mean, he could get Caleb Calverted, and we signed him. And
I liked it back when he played for us before. Like, he was never an amazing player, but I always thought he could definitely step up. And so it's good to see him back on the field, and he obviously had an impact. So he had two assists. That's basically 1/3 of our assist leader last year in one game. So, like, that's like great preseason, but nonetheless.
Well, and if you want to talk about surprising stuff in the preseason, I mean, look at how many goals Caleb Calvert has and Don Badji. That's 7 between the two of them. The guys are scoring. Granted, it's preseason, and you can say other guys aren't taking it seriously, and maybe they are or whatever. And at least it gives us something to talk about right now as we look forward to the regular season. So, as a fan in our eyes, why not at least try to find some sort of excitement? And hey, we're scoring goals, we're winning. We didn't necessarily kind of have this production last year in the beginning of the season, preseason or not.
We have what, 1/3 of the goals we had all season in 2 games this preseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but you know, I can also remember as a kid being a Detroit Lions fan, and I looked forward to the preseason because that was the time of year they actually won games.
Oh, poor lad.
But I'd like to think that, you know, there's something that's changed, you know, in Pablo's mentality and philosophy when it comes to the attack. And we've heard it been mentioned, and he said it himself, you know, you have to change a little bit of your philosophy and give up a little bit of that defense to be able to be a little more attacking. But really, in a way, that was kind of all that we were missing. So
yep,
it gives us a lot to look forward to. So
and we haven't lost yet in the preseason, which, again, preseason, but nonetheless,
it just gives us one more game right now.
Like one goal apiece.
Yeah,
pretty solid, especially when you're running a kid that just came out of college for half of that.
Right.
So, like, it's not he's playing his winger; he's playing central back. So he's in the middle. That's insane, and I gotta say, he's been doing a good job.
He's got to make Watsy feel like, oh, there's some competition for center back right now.
Yeah, I still feel that Watsy
or
is
Burling
a little bit more scary, that type of thing. Like,
yeah, and Watts did have a really good year last year, and he's earned a reputation, and he's improved for sure. So it's not like, you know, this is a position or a situation we can talk about as, you know, Courtney's going to come in and take the position away from Watts. But I think what it does now is it adds competitive depth to the roster, and it makes guys want to step their game up. I think, and I don't know if you're going to like to hear me say this, but Dylan Powers had a really great half, 40 minutes-ish. And I almost want to say he looked a lot like the rookie Dylan Powers. You know, he was getting in and he was making plays and he was getting fouled in certain areas, and he was hustling to the ball, and he was big and physical. And I just remember that was kind of the Dylan Powers that got him, you know, rookie of the year. So I'd like to think that I actually have to
agree. When playing, I was like, oh my God, he's actually kind of pushing forward. He's still.
But do you think
spot for me? But I think he definitely looked like he was going forward a little bit better. He looked like he got some confidence. He got to take that PK,
and he finished it.
And he finished it. So hopefully he's starting to put, because all he was missing was confidence. But we can't wait forever for that man to gain confidence. So he needs to really step up this year, or we need to let him go.
Well, do you think
for me,
that the
really
addition,
like a break year for him?
Right, but do you think the addition of bringing in Nana Boateng has kind of made him, you know, realize, wow, that now there's someone that they've, you know, made an effort to go and get that's playing in this position that he's also been playing in. Time to step it up?
Yeah, and Who's younger on that one?
Uh, Boateng, I think, is actually the younger one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, and he maybe he needed that push, or maybe he's just starting to gain a little bit more confidence, and we're seeing him kind of come out of his slump. But I think he really needs to come on this team. He needs to step up big this season, even if he's not starting. His minutes, he needs to be big. He needs to be impactful, or we need to just decide that he needs to move on. And I liked him his rookie year. I liked what I've seen so far in the preseason from him, but he really needs to show, because we've given him 2 seasons now, just kind of going, oh, okay, yeah, maybe. But I think you're at that point where it's make or break.
Well, yeah, and I think that any player maybe in his position can kind of feel that way, but it it was good to see. So let's just hope that, it kind of carries on, and there's some real serious effort being put on the training pitch and on game day when it comes to, the starting 11, first team 18. It's a big deal now. I think that just each year, just each edition is going to be a small but big addition when you think about what it does to the squad and the locker room, and just adding depth and chemistry and missing pieces to the puzzle to what will eventually hopefully be more than just a 1-year championship team.
Hopefully, and I imagine it will be. Last season wasn't a fluke. When we won the championship in 2010, fluky. It just was. We kind of just rode a high and made it in. We weren't the best team of the season. We didn't have the most talented players. Budget team that just kind of got lucky, and I think now we actually built a team that is trying. Like, you can tell the front office wants it. You can tell the ownership wants it.
From top really to bottom, it's wanted.
We've pushed it, and I think we want to go for it. And we're no longer a budget team. We're a team that's trying to win championships, and you can see it. And I think the players can see it, which is why you saw what you saw last season. You saw a defense that has no real there, that did an amazing job, and I think that's going to continue this season. And we've added some. So that's it. I think we've brought in some good players. I'd like to see Nana a little bit more to really be able to make a judgment on him. It's been really hard. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and who's to see, or who's to say, at least for us and our judgment now, the game against New York tomorrow, I would expect 40 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. I'd actually like to see him, because he's been doing the replace for others, see him pushed up. I want to see him in that 10 role.
Yeah.
I just want to see what he can do there.
Me too. And it could be just partially because he is one of those players where you could put him in the 8 role or the 10 role. And the way this formation is, and he's probably going to be pretty much the same player, which that's kind of what we liked about Jermaine Jones, if you think about it. And, if we start comparing him to that now, people probably, laugh at us or whatever, but who knows, let's just see what this kid can kind of do. You guys laughed at me about Calvert, but he's having a really good, strong go this year, and he's gonna give Pablo a really tough decision, because when you consider the strikers that he has, Doyle's got that spot, but are you really going to have 2 strikers on your bench when it comes to Alan Gordon and Caleb Calvert, and who do you put on or bring on in the second half? I really do kind of like the addition of Alan Gordon, just because I'd rather have him wearing our colors than be playing against him, just because of how he's just hurt us and other teams in those final minutes. But watching Calvert too, I think, man, give that kid 20, 30 minutes when other guys have rubber legs. I mean, he's big, he's fast, he's strong, and he can finish. And,
what'll be nice to do is see him be mentored by someone like Gordon and Doyle and
Connor Casey.
Getting him around and Connor Casey, getting that kind of mentorship in the offense like maybe we don't see a lot of him this season. Significant injuries.
Yeah, and you never know, and I guess I've learned my lesson from ever making some sort of prediction or projection of how much you'll see somebody, which, of course, barring injuries, like you said, it's kind of a crapshoot, but it would be good to see more of the youth. Now, granted, Calvert's technically not a true homegrown because he's not a Colorado homegrown, but we also do have a couple more homegrowns that we can also watch for. And Dylan Cerna's about 100%. He just hasn't been medically cleared yet. That's all he's waiting for. Mentally
we're
cleared.
Probably not going to see him until April, May. I'm going to guess like full minutes. He might get a couple later in March, but I think that.
Well, the rumors I hear is that if everything checks out, he'll be medically cleared by the doc pretty much by game day next week. Doesn't mean he's going to play. So at that point, that just means that there's really no restrictions in training, and he can now be considered seriously as far as where his spot in the 18 is. There's been some additions and a lot of different things since the last time he was in the squad, but it doesn't take away from the type of player and effect that he can have on the game, and that's all known. So I think April would be a good time frame to kind of see some sort of minutes from Dylan Cerna.
And I want to see him come back. I think that, again, we're going to run into that issue this season that we have a lot of veteran players that are like Gordon was only signed to a year contract. What, a year?
Yeah.
So you're looking at some of these veteran players I think you're going to see more of, barring injury. And you're going to see these younger guys kind of get spot minutes around them when they need to be rested, that kind of thing, which is good.
Well, there's also international breaks and cup games, and
you want to see these guys get a year of development in, really, where they're pushing it so that next season maybe you don't have to re-sign Gordon, or maybe Doyle's not back. And I know Brian would be right now, but like maybe you don't see him come back if you get enough talent out of these younger guys, because that's really what you want to see. You don't want to keep hanging on to older players if you can get some young talent to kind of step in and that can handle a full season in the MLS a little bit better.
Exactly. And it really kind of also just depends on the mentality of your older players. You have some of the ones that are fine kind of understanding their place and saying, okay, I'm no longer that starter. I can take a little bit of a pay cut. I still want to be a part of what's being done here. I can still contribute, blah, 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 switch some roles around and so on. But who's to say Doyler's that type of guy? I don't know. Or that he's at that point in his career yet. Who knows? I mean, there's a whole season of soccer ahead of us. And I'm not really keen on talking about end of anybody's careers or winding down for sure. In fact, I'd like to see Doyle have a good career. I think he's due. He was a little behind his average of goal per games last year. But I also think that we struggled at finding the right kind of distribution to getting those guys up front the ball, whether it was him, whether it was Baji, or even Calvert at the end of the year. So hopefully with that maybe kind of changing and Gashi now having a full year in the league, one would think he's either going to have a good role.
Huge things out of Gashi this year.
Just as long as it's not a sophomore slump.
Like I'm expecting he started catching his stride at the end of last year, and I think
that
it could be expected that he needs to have a big year. That's the guy that I expect to have our golden boot.
Right, and it seems like he had a really fun off season too. So, the guy knows how to make sure he's living life good. And when you're in just that kind of place, I would like to think you're apt to produce good quality when you're at your job.
What I want to see out of him is that see him be our offensive leader for a few years to come, that like Cerna and Calvert can kind of work under. And I just see him as being that still young enough that he can spend that time and do it. And it's one of those things. I feel that Doyle could do the same thing. I feel that Doyle seems to be aging a little bit more. His body seems to be taking that. Like you can see later in the game that he's starting to tire, and you don't see it as much out of Gashi. Like for me, that shows either he's not training hard enough, or he's training too hard in practice, or something like that, where he's just his body's not keeping up.
Well, and there's always that small thing just of body chemistry and how you're built. Just how some guys are more injury prone than others. Tony Cassio, in fact, could probably talk to you about being injury prone, which would be a concern of mine if I were the club. But, he has talent. Look back how far he went, or how far you want to look back. He's got that potential there. So, and there's a lot of guys on the squad who have potential, and it's just exciting to think about where we could be, even not just, in a couple months from now, but, in a couple years, as long as we, hold some things together. Now, granted, we're going to lose some guys too, but, we could even talk about how we lost Deshaun Brown and we sold him for a chunk of cash. And last we heard he was on trial or playing at Tampa. So, guys' careers can go anywhere.
They can. And what I like this preseason, is you're seeing us score goals. We have yet to not score a goal in each game.
Oh.
We have yet to let them.
No.
And we have more than 2 goals.
We haven't let them score more than 1.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They haven't scored more than 1 goal a game.
It cut out, so I thought you said it. We haven't let them score.
Yes, so then we've scored multiple goals in 2 games. So, which is something we only did twice last year, score 3 goals, and we had 6 in one and 3 in another. And granted, one of them was against a lower level team. Still, you're seeing a team that's focusing on offense in the preseason, which I think is what Pablo needed to do, because he didn't last season in the preseason. And I think that, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, your fan base wants to see some goals. And if you're doing that in preseason, it gets your fan base excited for the season. And when you're not doing it in preseason, it's on the incoming season.
Yeah, and we did know a little bit last year he was obviously going to focus a lot on defense. And as you would after having the kind of year you had the year before that. Yeah. And we've said it a handful of times, when it comes to sport and soccer and just everything in general and just sport and franchises, it takes time for things to kind of settle in and take effect and show themselves. And it doesn't really matter what sport it is. Most will tell you that championships start with the defense. And so starting last year's focus with the defense was the right thing to do. Now, were we as impatient and didn't really have the hindsight or the foresight to kind of say, all right, well, this year's focus is the defense. Next year, it better be about the offense. I mean, it's really hard to kind of give ourselves those long-term goals before we get upset with our club. But it is absolutely awesome to see multiple goals being produced by this team, even if it's preseason.
Now, I know you haven't got a lot of time out at practice. Do you think that Connor Casey is doing a better job at working with this offense? Now, I'm not saying he's a better coach than Spencer, because Spencer has shown that he's a great coach. But is it because Connor works better with Pablo or works better with this type of offense, or whatever the reason, it seems like he's having more of an effect?
I think that
Pablo's changed the way he's doing it.
It's a combination of Pablo's mentality, accepting more offense, and that, yeah, maybe Connor and Pablo can work a little bit better, behind closed doors or whatnot. What I did see at practice was 22 guys working on offense. Never seen that in years, not since the Oscar Pereja days. Had I seen everyone on the team working on offense, building from the back. So it was, kind of like an 11v11, but it's hard to explain the drill without some sort of whiteboard or something to kind of show it. But
oh yeah,
it was a strictly offensive drill. And in the past, all we've ever seen from offensive drills were kind of towards the end of practice. Spenny would take guys aside who chose to do that, and they would work on shooting and whatnot. If there was any sort of other stuff, it was, just the strict, just forwards and maybe a couple wingers, and they would be doing their thing at one end of the field while Pablo had the bulk of the team, midfield and defense, working on other stuff, or they'd separate them in the three. But you never saw everyone working on offense. And this was something that just was heartwarming to see, that everyone was working on offense, and it was just
you can see it on the field now. You saw it in the New England game. I was super excited watching the New England game because I was seeing a team that was still building an offense from the back, which I like. I don't mind that. That's how we won our championship. That's how a lot of teams play and win, when you build from the back like that. But you see us actually being offensive doing it. Last year, you were seeing us just see our back four pass the ball back and forth, and then back to Howard or McMath, and then back to them, and then like you were seeing with a lot of dinking with the ball in our half. See that in these last two games. You're seeing us actually push that ball forward into half line. You're seeing us be aggressive offensively. You're seeing us hold the ball offensively and not pass the ball back to our defense. You're seeing us cross. You're seeing we needed things that truly show a championship team, because not only are we dominating defensively, but we're showing that we can continually put pressure on New England after we were up, which is something that Pablo didn't do last year. Pablo would always back off after we had a lead.
Pablo wasn't the one playing, which is funny that I'm saying that, because that's something he'll tell you. But that's not fully on him, because as you're saying it, some of the tangibles that you listed, and this, we were players. It comes down to confidence too. Your confidence on the ball, your confidence in the guys you're passing to, the guys that you're working next to. That all kind of takes an effect too. And yeah, that's changed. There's some difference. And granted, a lot of these guys are the same guys that have been playing together. We only made 3 additions in the offseason. Some would tell you that's not enough, but I think that's plenty at this point. And granted, that's not talking draft picks. I'm talking actual signings. So it doesn't necessarily tweak or mess the chemistry up a whole lot. Now, granted, Pablo's philosophy has changed a little, but even that, it hasn't drastically changed. What they're doing now is they're focusing on adding offense to what was already the best defense in the league. So it's going to be a good progression.
Yeah, you can just see, just like we saw last year at the beginning of the season, not so much in preseason, you saw a team that was confident in its defense and that was confident in what Pablo's message was last year. This year, his message has gotten even stronger and pushed to a more, hey, we can score goals, we can do this,
and
we
this
can
is
push
how.
forward without sacrificing goals. And that's what he's showing in this preseason, and that's what confidence going into the season. And I think the pickups we did were good pickups. Yeah, we could have gone out and gotten some all-star offensive player, but I'm not sure that was really necessary, because I don't think that's what we were missing. We were missing the transition from the defense to the offense, not a scorer. We have Gashi, we have Doyle, we had Baji, we had players that can put balls in the back of the net for days. But we had no way to transition the ball from the defense to the offense, and I think that, which is great.
You cut out a little bit there, but if you want to just refinish that last sentence.
I just think that we did a great job transition right now. I think that we had problems with our transition last season from the defense to the offense, and we don't see that right now. And that's what's making our offense click. So there's a lot of people that were looking for that amazing goal scorer, and I don't think that was really what we were missing. And we talked about it. We said we needed a number 10. We needed somebody that's going to distribute to the offense, because we have them.
Yeah. Still got a little choppy, but that's all right. I think we can kind of figure that out. Well, we just kind of spent a lot more than 11 minutes back and forth on just kind of our thoughts of preseason and games and our excitement and so on. Are you excited about the new kit?
No. I'm glad it's yellow. I love the yellow. So I am excited that they stuck with yellow. It's just I'm probably not going to go buy one because it's basically a rehash of the one I already have, and I hate buttons.
Oh, well, that's kind of minimal there. But you're probably not the only one that may, have a button issue. There are probably some out there that are worse off than you when it comes to buttons or collars or polos or something like that. But
I just like my pull-on jerseys, and I'm not. It's just something I never was really a fan of. And if it'd been a different jersey, if they'd really changed it, really gotten it with the buttons, but the fact that it's basically the same thing, except for it's got blue sleeves, not a huge difference for me, and I probably won't because they're pricey.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's different when, if it was $40, yeah, I probably might just because of the, it's a collection or something like that. But when it's 150, yeah, no, it's really, those are subtle differences, and yeah, that's kind of a marketing thing. If you're looking to try and sell a whole bunch of jerseys, don't make subtle changes. But if you're got a really good response and you're wanting to keep your fans happy and the vibe is you keep it that way, all right, I get it. You can kind of take a little bit of
I'm
a
perfectly fine with that. I am
right because
perfectly fine with not putting out an awesome new jersey every year because I like our jerseys. I like our yellow that we wear on the road.
well,
I
and you
like
could
our
also
burgundies.
you could save it for the burgundy because that's next year. There could be a complete whole new dark kit if you think about it. There's something new on the board when it comes to a new kit next year. So I'm fine with
As
how the
long as we
yellow
didn't
is.
do the stupid candy cane tubes that Brian wanted, I was happy. So
It still could happen. It just isn't going to be this year.
but I really do love the yellow. I love the Colorado nature of our jerseys. I love the fact that it's a proud Colorado thing because Colorado. So that's awesome. It's just I'm probably not going to buy a new jersey because I already have a yellow one.
Right.
Doesn't make it a bad jersey.
Me either. And times are not necessarily flying great. So dropping $150 on something that I'm only going to wear.
So if the Rapids would like to donate us a couple yellow jerseys to the voice staff, we'll gladly wear those.
I don't know. I'd give mine away in a winner of a fascist or footy.
Well, we know you don't win those.
That's why I would give that away to the winner of that show or that episode or game that we did, which, maybe we might have to do at the away tailgate on the 11th or the away viewing party, I guess. But we'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. I think, I don't know if Matt wanted us to say it, but he did say he wasn't all that impressed, didn't really care for the new jersey. And he didn't elaborate, but I would assume that his feelings are kind of in a way similar to yours. Like, it's another yellow jersey. Barely any different.
It's still a good jersey. It's like if it was the first time the yellow jersey had come out, I'd go buy one.
Yeah.
So
if it wasn't yellow, I would have bought one. But because it's yellow, I'm not going to buy one. Do I like it? Yes. I loved the yellow. I went out and bought one as soon as I could, but I already have one.
Me too.
And I got a long sleeve, so I'm happy, and I just did Donald Trump hands. That's not good. Did you want to talk about your fringe players?
I wish we could get a little bit in the discussion with them. Let's start with the excitement that Casio showed up and nobody was expecting him.
Right.
All of a sudden it was just Antonio Casio's coming in, and I was like, he doesn't play for us.
Yeah. So Matt had found an article from the Tucson Sentinel. I suggest checking it out. They got the inside scoop. Casio's a Arizona native, a Phoenix native. So he was in the area. In fact, he was in the hospital. His wife had just given birth to a kid, and he saw a Colorado number. Didn't really know it. Kind of figured, why not? And answered the call. It was kind of one of those things where maybe something inside you tells you to answer the call more than you actually want to answer that call. I know I don't answer numbers I don't know, so I wouldn't
I don't
answer that
numbers
call.
I know most of the time.
All right, well now you know not to call Austin if you want to get anything done. Anyway, I wasn't watching the game with sound on. I had it on a secondary TV, so it was kind of no sound kind of thing. So I didn't know who this guy with a man bun was and who 39 was, and why all of a sudden he was in the game before halftime. Like I just didn't expect that kind of sub, and I must have looked away when it happened, and then looked back, and then I'm watching it. I'm like, dang, who is that guy? He's got a man bun. That's not Ibrahimovic, so I better check Twitter because Wanathon would have been blowing me up if it was, and he sure as shit wouldn't have been wearing 39. But anyway, all I see are people going Casio, what the fuck, Casio, and I'm like, no, this isn't the like Tony Casio. And then I go further down, and then finally it's the the Rapids Twitter, and it says Casio in the lineup for today as a guest player for the tournament, and it was like, oh shit, it is Tony Casio. Well, now I'm not as surprised, and yeah, go Tony, because he had it in him. I mean, we saw it back then, but that was 4 years ago.
He was just injury prone a little bit back then.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is we sent him away on loan because he was good, but we obviously weren't in a position to give him time, which I don't know. If you look at the squad at that time, I don't know. Maybe we should have not sent him to Houston, but would he have ripped his ACL then? I mean, it happened. So, and ask Dylan Cerna. That'll take away almost an entire season worth of experience and just, getting out there and having your eyes.
It can be career ending. There are players that have literally had that injury at a very young age that never recover back to what they were.
There are, that's not another, the Achilles injury. Connor Casey, I'll tell you, he played after it, but it's not like his career was anything stellar afterwards. So there are certain injuries that just do it. And then, he didn't really get much of a chance in Orlando. And, he had a injury there that kept him off the training pitch for 6 months. So, if I were a club, I'd let a guy go too. And so, at that point, you kind of, as a player or a manager, you're just kind of like, oh, this guy might be.
But look at it from the Rapids standpoint. We can probably get him pretty cheap because of that. Like he said.
Well, he'd get the league minimum.
Injuries. So, but still. But he's talented. He's, granted, missed quite a bit of his time, but he's played in the league. He obviously had an impact in the one game we've seen him in. Now, maybe that's a fluke, but
well, right. Who knows what he's doing on the training pitch? I mean, if you got to think, he got a call from the coaching staff somewhere. Someone along the line knew Tony was there, and obviously knew of him. And Pobbs knew. He's played with him, so there might be a little bit of we know he's got it in him. And we know we might be able to, like you said, pick him up cheap. The question is medically, do you want to invest in that? They spent a lot of money on Sean St. Ledger, I'm sure. So I'm pretty sure that if they're going to take a chance on someone medically, they want to make sure that it's someone who's worth it, like a Dylan Cerna. So, that may be something that Padraig and Pablo will have to discuss maybe come the end of this week. We'll see. I mean, again, there's a game tomorrow night we haven't seen that could give us a whole lot more to talk about.
It's true. All right, let's switch over to a local for us coming out of DU, Courtney Ford.
Yeah.
He is a very good job. I don't think he's earned a starting spot, but for a guy coming out of college,
he doesn't seem lost. That's for sure.
And he's taking direction from other players. I saw him getting pulled aside by a few of the other players, and he seems to just take that direction and know what he's doing. And that's really what you want out of a player that's, first of all, new on the team, and second of all, young and new on the team. And so he hasn't really been caught too much out of position. He's been doing a solid job. I wish he was a little bit more aggressive because I want my center backs to be want people to
Keep
be
in
afraid
mind,
to go at him.
he's played every position on that back line.
True.
I don't know him to know necessarily what his natural position is or what his choice position is. I'd like to ask him at some point. But the one thing that as you were talking about, just kind of his production and how well he's done, it's pretty impressive when you consider, like you said, he's fresh out of college. He's new to the team. He's kind of, things are really just could be overwhelming for a guy. And it reminds me of Mr. Watts and how many times and how many games and how many situations did you feel like he wasn't comfortable or he wasn't playing the position right or he made mistakes or he did some of those things that you just said Courtney didn't do in the few games that you watched, being so young and new to the situation. So maybe that kind of says something about maybe where he's at. Like you're right, maybe he's not necessarily fighting for a starting position because Watts sure as shit earned that, and there's no way anyone's taking anything away from Axel unless he gets hurt. So
Yep.
is he pushing Bobby for that spot come that first team 18? Is he someone
I'd personally I'd like to see that, and I like Bobby, but I'd love to see someone as young as that guy to start bench minutes because you're investing in a future, especially a local player, a homegrown player. He's on a homegrown contract, so you don't have to worry about him in the future as long as you keep him.
right. Well,
choice if you get rid of him, really.
Well, I
And
mean,
so
if you're going to get rid of a guy, obviously you want to make sure that it's good for both the player and the club. In that that situation is hopefully years and years away for any of our homegrowns on the roster at this current point.
and he's when he gets his first minutes in a stadium, a big stadium, because it's different in preseason versus being in a stadium that 10,000 fans are in versus being at a preseason game where you're kind of in a college scrimmage basically. So there's a different level of pressure that he like that. So I'm interested to see what he does, but he's done a very good job in preseason.
Yeah. This isn't a show where I'm going to argue on that point. So at least we're talking about the goods that these guys are having. They're really, this is obviously early in the season, so we're kind of we got a lot to talk about as far as what we could be happy with as far as the production of the team. I think the Revs fans would be pretty like, what the F did I just watch? So
and that's what we needed to do last year, and it was the reason that we didn't get the Shield. I don't know if we could have done much better making it to the Cup. I think playoffs are playoffs, and it's what happens. But if we had had an offense like we're showing in preseason that continues to pressure, when last season we'd step back, and that caused us issues because if you're not pressuring the other team, they're getting all the time with the ball, and eventually stuff's going to go in. Eventually you're going to get unlucky no matter how good your defense is. Pressuring, you're really making them continue to have to play the full field, and I think that's important. I think that's what we've been doing in preseason is that we've been pushing there. And
yeah. There's we maybe if we had this offense and it's ifs and buts and candies and nuts, we'd all have a merry freaking Christmas. But I think that winning the Supporter Shield, yay, we would have had one trophy, because you're right. Who knows what would have happened in the playoffs? And, was Timmy's injury part of that? And it's all in the past. And I look at the additions and I look at the preseason, I look at the mentality and I listen to, what the players have said. And I'm sitting on some articles here we'll be putting out on our new website once that comes out. You're going to have the same kind of feeling we got where it's time to be excited. Season opener is 11 days away when, as of recording day. It's going to be Connor Casey Day, I think, when this gets dropped. So either way, it's time to get excited.
We said at the end of last season. We were excited at the end of last season. Why? Because we had an amazing season last season. Don't think we had an amazing season. You weren't watching.
Or you're just a negative person.
You're just ignoring the facts that we had an amazing season last season. And to that. And we've had a strong preseason so far. So there's no reason not to be excited about the upcoming season. There's not one. Yeah. We aren't showing weakness. We're scoring goals, which we didn't do last season. Our defense is still
don't jinx the shit.
Keeping score sheets good. Right about.
No, yeah, you're right, but I wouldn't say we've got no weaknesses. Everyone's got weaknesses,
of course.
But
so, do we want to go into our third player then? I guess.
Yeah. Let's do it, and then we should probably
Brendan's boy, Caleb.
Yeah.
He's been showing well. Brendan said it last season. Didn't see him last season because Brendan guaranteed it, and that guarantees him being in Charlotte.
I guaranteed the promise that this
awesome.
guy had.
He's doing really good.
That just shows that I've got an eye for talent, and I saw it. I may have been a year off, and I could even be 2. Who knows? I mean, you just don't know. But if you don't see the talent that the guy has now, then you're looking for something different. But clearly now a lot of people have seen him or enough of him to be like, oh, he can put the ball in it. And we kind of need somebody like that, whether he's coming off the back of the, or not the back, but if he's coming off the bench or starting. It's nice to know that you have someone on the roster that has that in them. When, last year there were times we questioned whether some of our guys had that in them at that time. But, knock on wood, I'd like to think differently about that this year.
And I'd like to see some more of him. I'd love to see him come off the bench a little bit for us. I don't think he's starter material yet, but I'd love to see him come off the bench. I think another season where maybe he spends a little bit more time here and a little bit less time with would be good.
Yeah.
A customer league, because I think next season.
Well, yeah, and next season we might need an actual main striker too. So you never know. But again, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Guys for the future and the guys for the now. And this squad is starting to build quite a bit of both.
They really are. I'm so excited.
Speaking of that, check your emails, guys, or check the Rapids website if you're a season ticket holder, because you do have to actually pick up your packet, whether it's at the stadium, which you could do kind of anytime during business hours. But they punched out an email and have a thing on their website for locations and times to pick up your packets. So they'll be in different, areas based on where you live.
That's for people getting tickets through the Rapids, not
C38. C38's got their things too, but
or you're going to go up there and be really disappointed.
Yeah, do keep that in mind. This isn't for C38 season ticket holder members. That routine and pickup hasn't really changed, has it? Yeah, he's shaking his head. So, but if you're a regular season ticket holder, because some of you guys that listen aren't and are that aren't through C38, hit up the website. I'm not going to list all of that. It's a waste of airtime. So, anything else as we kind of look forward to our final weekend in preseason? As our next cast, we will have nothing to talk about but the home opener, our tailgate, although we don't really have anything hugely planned, except for the fact that it's home opener, and you should just come super extra excited for
We have
that.
a whole new sound system that's going to be
yeah. We have a sound system that's definitely
we've got some new mics. We're
gonna
kicking it. Hopefully, we'll have a
we're gonna
player or
step it up
somebody
like
out there.
wedding reception style.
I remember, I think Fleming and Balboa had already agreed to come out to the first tailgate and hang out with us again to kick off the season on Twitter. So we'll have to annoy them again, but I'd love to see a player out there, obviously.
Well, as long as they're somewhat healthy, but because this is the best part of the what caught fire about the player interviews at the tailgates last year was that at the beginning of the year, not only did you have a couple injuries, but you had new players that were new to the team or younger players who obviously weren't in the first team 18. So they're first team 18. So there's a chance that, we might get Courtney Ford or, Sam Harrison. Either way, I'm spitting out the wrong name. But either way.
Injury. I can't remember what his name is. Tim?
Oh, yeah. That goalie guy.
I'd love to see him out there.
That would be a wonderful show of support to your fans, Mr. H, if you would feel so gracious. But anyway, the weather is supposed to be typical Colorado, but who knows? That's an 10 day forecast. So.
It could be snowing. It could be 100 degrees. We really don't know.
Yeah,
but we're going to have beer and be set up and have some fun out there. Anyway.
Yeah, and the Jersey launch. For those that don't know,
the Jersey launch too. That'll be City Hall, I believe.
City Hall, March 1st. Same thing as last year. Same time, same stuff. Almost the same jersey. Yeah.
Probably no Rapid Man. But you never know.
Well, that would be probably the definite excitement of the party if he came out for a second year in a row. And then I would be bummed that I had to
don't know. This was our, I guess, year anniversary show.
Oh, man.
Give or take a few days.
Oh.
So we've been on air for a year now.
You dropped the bomb on me at the end. I don't have like some sort of happy birthday stupid song I can play at the end or anything like that. Oh, wait. I might have something kind of depending on how your perspective is.
But yeah, so thanks for sticking around with us and listening to us, and
thanks for starting with us from the beginning.
Because we were way worse before. Not that we're great now, but
small improvements. We're just like the squad. Every year we'll get better. You'll start to see things.
We keep improving. We're gonna have bigger and better things for you guys. We keep trying to get better. And if you have some suggestions or some criticism. And a message.
We might listen to one of them.
Yeah, send them to the Voice of C38 on Twitter, preferably
or
in a message.
Facebook. We got the Facebook now too, and then
we do have the Facebook now.
The website to follow. All right, see you guys next week. Hopefully, they kick some ass against NYCFC tomorrow.